What's up, old school homies? Today we're going to talk about why did I need so many keyboards and do they actually do anything different? I'm here to say I need every single one of these keyboards, and it's because I got them pretty cheap. I knew how to fix them, and now they're mine. End of story. I'm not going to throw away stuff that's good, okay? I'm not going to sell it because I like it. So let's talk about exactly what's cool about each and every one of these keyboards and why they can't really be replaced. You could buy all of these as plugins. Actually, you could get Roland plugins. You can get the Korg Wave Station plugins for $100. You could get plugins for a DX7, which is a little bit more advanced than the PSS480. You can even get plugins for a Casio that has the phase distortion. So I actually found it cheaper to just buy all these keyboards separately. And it's nice because like you can just turn them on and plug them into the amp and play. As where like if you just bought the plugins, you would have to turn on the computer. And that's what you have to do to get that micro lab going. This is actually a MIDI controller, and it's so simple. This thing is actually plugging in as a USB into the computer. So the microlab is basically just like your keyboard. It's just directly triggering straight into your computer through USB. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's pretty cool because it's pretty seamless. You can't hear anything scratchy or whatever. And I know that because when me and JR made our first album, we used the Roland as a MIDI controller. We just plugged the MIDI into the back of the Focusrite. But there's a little tiny bit of delay depending on which voicing you're using. Sometimes you could hear it, sometimes you can't. Most of the stuff we used on the album was pretty thick and you couldn't hear it. But the processor for the MIDI is not very strong on the 1986 RD200. So what you'll get is a little bit of delay. Some people like using the Roland as a MIDI controller because it has a little bit more of a piano feel, and it does. But on my next album, we're basically just going to use its voicings that come on board so that we don't get that delay. There's only 8. They're all solid gold. They're really nice. And that's the strength of this Roland right here, is those 8 voicings. Because if it's not really that great as a MIDI controller, you're stuck with those. Luckily, they're solid gold, warm, timeless, classic, well engineered. All that classic Roland sound comes right through. And I have another Roland here that I don't really play, the EM10. I got that for $50, fixed it. I could just flip it, but it's very lightweight. I think it came from 1996, and it's got MIDIs on it. That's probably got a better MIDI controller on it if I wanted to use this as a MIDI controller. See, there's a couple MIDI outlets, and then there's a output jack for mono. Now, is this thing good? Yes. The strength of the Microlab, for me personally, are these little sliders. I think they're wonderful, and they make everything a little bit more blendy than even a mod wheel. It's hard to explain, but if you touch it, you'll like it, basically. It's a little limited in the amount of keys it has, so that was a little bit annoying. But you could actually octave up and down with the little toggles right there. What else is you can use the hold button or the shift button, and you could actually hold chords into it. So you only have to hit one button and the whole chord goes. I haven't played around with it yet, but it seems pretty ingenious. So that's the strength of the modern technology. Casiosa A21. This is for like when my wife's asleep and I want to go downstairs and put on my headphones. It's actually pretty loud through the headphones, even on the lowest setting, which kind of bugs, but it's portable. You could put batteries in that, maybe if you wanted to busk somewhere and not act like you're trying to be somebody, just staying low key. You could take that anywhere, and you could plug it in with that little plug over there. So the voicings on it are actually beautiful. I'm inspired by it. Casio is kind of like my sort of personal thing. I love Casio. Ooh, now you've gone into it. The Korg Wave Station. Now you can actually buy the plugins for this thing for $100, and it'll have these resonant filters on it that don't come stock on here. Without those resonant filters that they put into the plugins, it's a little bit dark. I'm just going to put it out there that this thing, wow, you're going to freak people out with it. Every single one of those murder shows and stuff, they had to be using this. Any scary movie had to be using this. Its strength isn't really that joystick thing over there. I don't even have the PCM cards to make that shit work, I don't think. But the mod wheel is very odd. Very odd. This thing's, it's pretty cool too. But, dude, you play with that mod wheel and you're going somewhere and doing something. And it'll freak people out. The strength of the Wave Station is really the fact that there's so many layers, so many oscillators. I think there's like 16 or 32 freaking oscillators for that thing. And it's a Dave Smith designed thing. Need I say more? It evolves when you touch anything on it. The voicings are crazy, just crazy. I'll stop talking about it. The PSS 480's got mini keys on it. I'm actually going to use that to my advantage at some point. There's going to be a reason why I'm going to use the smaller keys here. Its strengths aren't really in the speakers, because the speakers are mounted in the plastic casing that kind of vibrates a little bit, so you kind of have to run the mono out. It'll have a mono back here. That's it though. Like, oh, there's a MIDI over there. Actually, this was one of the few that had MIDI. So this thing's sick. Like, it's pretty much changeable with the parameters here. This is the key to why this thing's weird. You could blend different voicings together, but really having these and then you change it up here, you could change the values, completely changes the sound into weird stuff. So if you want a quirky sound, you aim right for here. I like it, but I'm trying to find weird parts of it, because I have other voicings that are good on other things. But let's talk about this one. The CT5500 is definitely one of my favorites, and it's different than the Wave Station. It's not so evolving and layery. I mean, but it is. It's just, when you get a tone out of it, it's good. That's really all there is to say about it. It's designed with all these different voicings here, and there's quite a few, not a ton, but there's quite a few. And when you mess around with this thing, you're kind of happy with the sounds it makes. It's a rompler, it's a bunch of ROM based voicings layered over each other, but it's not quite as synthesizery as, you know, a wave station. Its strength is definitely in the pitch wheel too. This thing has a weird pitch wheel. I don't know, man. When you mess with that wheel, the modulation, it just goes woo 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 woo, you know. But the pitch bend on this is special, and the pitch bend on the wave station is special. But they're different, totally different. I would say its strengths are the sustain button. I hit that every time, a lot of the time. Not every time, but that's my favorite button on there, and I like the wheel. A lot of its synth voicings are very good. If you need some tripped out leads, it's basically good for leads. I like the leads, and I like the phase distortion. It gets nice and gritty for the harpsichord, which will show up on my album. And you have a few kind of oddball sounds over here that are good for effects. So you can see why I need them all.